So, hello, welcome to Paris. I hope and I think that everybody knows the name of this city, which is one of the well-known city, and I will speak with you about the transformation of this city and the assets that this city can bring to the world regarding the capacity and ability we will have to control and develop the numeric systems. So I will speak in three parts. First, I will present a little bit Paris in the world competition. The second thing I want to speak with you today is to compare Paris with the brain. Is Paris an efficient, smart city? What is smart and why do we have to be smart? And to conclude, I will try to draw some lines to explain to you what we think that Paris can bring to the world, especially in the terms of the control of the machine, which is competing more and more with a human being. So, Paris, is it a ville-monde, a city world? What does that mean? First of all, Paris is the first worldwide destination for tourism. We have more than 44 million tourists in Paris every year, and the total French population is around 62 million now. So we just welcome 2/3 of the whole French people in Paris every year, which is an enormous pressure regarding the inhabitants. We have also a mixed population, very mixed population. 50% of the Parisians have a foreign grandfather or grandmother. So we have welcomed refugees from all over the world, beginning at the end of the 19th century. We have welcomed first the Polish and Russians who were flying from the revolution in Russia. Polish Italians in the beginning of the 20s, they were coming to exploit mines in the north and center of France. And after that, Spanish and Portuguese were dedicated to build and to rebuild France after the Second World War. And after that came in France all the inhabitants of the old colonies we had in the years before, Algerians, Vietnamese, Moroccans, Tunisians. And since the beginning of the 80s, a large Chinese community has itself in Paris, very active in terms of trade and commerce, and more and more West Africans are coming because the political situation of West and East Africa is quite complicated and will be more and more complicated in the next years with the heating of our planet. So each of these groups have different cultures. That's very important to understand that these cultures is not isolated. It's mixed and proposed to other people. And we all live together in some sort of patchwork of cultures and ability and assets coming from everywhere. The second thing is that benefiting of this diversity of population, Paris is a leader thanks also to the educational systems and the university system. Today, for example, we are leader in the world in terms of Fields medals, which is just like the Nobel Prize for the mathematicians. We welcome all arts here, and Paris is a very, very active city in terms of art. Every day you have more than 300 to 500 occasion, exhibition, concerts, all things regarding art. But we are also well known for mode, wine, and food. The two richest people in the world are Mr. Arnault from LVMH, which is a modes group that you perhaps know, and Mrs. Bettencourt, which is leading the L'Oréal group, dedicated to the beauty of the woman. But something that you perhaps don't know, that entrepreneur was a French word at the origin. So we developed since the 1970s a very strong ability to develop entrepreneurship in France. It was beginning in a world-known economic school, management school, which is called HEC. And we have think a lot about what is entrepreneurship, how does it work, how can we make it successful. And to do that, and that's a very old tradition because we had these refugees coming from everywhere, we have people who are thinking. And so they have developed a very strong approach of the philosophical way of building the world. And I will say, ideas first. What we want to be in the future, we want to be the leader in the green finance sector, how to redirect all the money of the world to make the transition of our world to a better world and a safer world. We want also to be leader in social entrepreneurship. We do things that the consumption, as we know it since 50 years, is coming at a end, and we will have more and more to act for people and to understand how to construct a better human being, and I will come to that after. And the last thing, and not the least, is neurology and neuroscience. There is a very, very strong school of neuroscience in France, feeding the world with doctors and researchers. But we have also an approach which is not based on machines, but which is based on human interactions we called neurocognition, who try to explain why we are what we are. So when do we have to act to modify a human life? When do we have to act to make people better, smarter, and healthier? The economic value, so in France and especially in Paris, is totally based on intellectual production. 90% of the market value of Parisian firms is based on intangible assets, just like trademarks, just like thinking patents, and so. What you can see on this photo is the new Samaritan, which is a very big department store who was totally refurbished in the last years, and it's owned now by LVMH. I speak about it before, and what you can see is that they want to reflect the world inside their own worlds. So the fact is that the goods which are inside are less important than the images which are put in that goods. The economic value also is totally based on the creativity. So creativity is everywhere. On this image, I wanted to show you how you can mix the commercial approach of the world, the historical approach of the world. It's a very ancient church in the center of Paris, but also how is it included in the city? How do we mix everything in the city to produce new things, so to act as creators? But the conditions to express and develop this creativity are complex, but they are largely based also on the physical link and not the numerical link, and a certain set of mind, which is very specific to France. This set of mind is based on irony. Nothing is serious. Everything can be questioned. It's based on freedom. I want to act as an independent person, and I have for that to be free. Resilience, especially, you know that Paris was attacked by terrorist bombing 5 years ago, but the city has resisted, and the city was very resilient because everybody was taking care of his neighbors, and solidarity, which is totally important to live in such a big city. Now going to smart. Why do we have to be smart? There was a Belgian singer which was called Jacques Brel, I hope you know, was singing a song saying, Être une seulement, être une heure, beau, beau et con à la fois. So be 1 hour only, stupid and beautiful at the same time. Because smart, intelligence, cleverness is definitely not comfortable. In France, in Paris, being smart determines your social ranking. The most smart you are, the most powerful you are. But also in the worldwide competition, being smart is definitely a total necessary asset. But smart is not only a fight, it's also a pleasure, because your brain, when it's acting, when it's working, has a pleasure to work. And definitely for life, intelligence is a good asset. But is Paris like a brain? Can we transfer this image of human being to a city? Can we see Paris like a brain? So as a brain, Paris is the center of the body. The body here is France, is our country. Paris is leading the country. He's giving orders and receiving news and is piloting how France has to be. As a brain, so Paris is a place of the national leadership. But as a brain also, the urban structure, so the networks, the way how information is circulating inside the city is absolutely essential. That's why internet networks and energy networks are at their best, so that information could be shared here in Paris, but also everywhere in the world with a very short notice. But if it is a brain, how to develop it? That we know, what we know from neurology is that if you want to have a very good brain, healthy brain, you have to feed it, you have to connect it inside it, you have to train it, and you have to protect it. So to feed a brain is not, we can see, okay, it's not only like feeding a body, but the interaction between people is definitely the key to have a healthy brain. In our societies now, in our worldwide societies, the fact is that we interact between people more and more on numeric screen. Like today, I'm speaking with you quite a long way from here to Shanghai, but is it sufficient to know you? Is it sufficient to understand who you are? Is it sufficient to perceive how the Chinese society is? I don't think so. I think that the numeric is definitely not sufficient for them. Why is it not sufficient also? Is that because our brain is fed by all our senses. I don't know if you know, we thought there were 5 senses: seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. In fact, we have discovered that there are 8 senses. But all these senses are feeding our brain because they are definitely the gateway between inner self and outside, between the reality, the world, and what we are in our body and in our brain. Paris is a little bit like that. It's definitely the best place to experiment all of what I said before regarding seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling. And it contributes largely to the development of imaginative, creative, and analytic systems thinking. The image you see is the Paris Opera, which is called Palais Garnier. It is, excuse me, I'm French, so I'm very proud of my country, and I'm Parisian, so I'm doubly proud. It's, for me, the most beautiful opera in the world. And this was painted by Mr. Raoul Dufy at the end of the 19th century. What you can see is that thinking, being cultured is not a pain, it's a pleasure. So you can just meet the people, you can hear the music, you can see how they act, how they sing. You can feel also, and you can smell everything there, and you can drink champagne also to Opera Garnier. So you have to feed your brain. You have to feed your brain first beginning by eating, but also by reading and also by drinking. I wanted to show to you this bottle of 1986. That's for me the best one in the world, called Chateau d'Yquem. So I engage you to try it if you can in the next few years. And you have to connect your brain. Our intelligence is based also of the number of interactions with others. As a brain, you have neurons, but these neurons, when they are alone, they don't act and they don't grow. So what they are doing is that they are touching other neurons and making synapses. And synapses is a place where all the information are exchanged. So to make a brain growing, you have to interact, and to interact as much as you can. The city is a place to create synapses, to be smart. But the machine is reducing the interaction. And I will speak a little bit about COVID and what we have learned with COVID in the next few minutes. And Paris has a unique way of putting people together. Connect it, your brain here in Paris, you can connect it at every time you want. So relationships in Paris are not limited to your original social class or origin. We have defined a concept, Mr. Bourdieu has done that, which is a cultural capital. So that's the asset you own because you know things, you have learned things, and you have discovered things, people, habits, musics, and so on. And in France, especially in Paris, the cultural capital is the most valued asset you can have. With a very high cultural capital, you can do what you want in the city, not depending on the money you have. Wealth is not based on the money you own, but on your personal, cultural, artistic, and innovation knowledge and know-how. You have to train your brain, and Paris for that is perfect. It's a concentration of science, art, and art of living. You will never stop to think and learn when you are here. You have the most concentrated campus of researchers in the world. 50,000 researchers are working together, but direct in the city. They are mixed within the city in a place called La Montagne Sainte-Geneviève, where you can find Normal, you can find also La Sorbonne, you can find a lot of engineering schools, and everybody is in the street, on the street, in the cafes, inside the city, not outside the city. Paris is known also to feeding the AI sector. So Paris also, as I said, is the best in the world regarding the mathematics schools, but also regarding the economic schools. We have been honored by 2 Nobel Prizes in the last 5 years. And Paris is also well known for its artists and museums. It's a first destination of European students. So that means in terms of smart power, the 300,000 students which are coming every year in France and Paris become definitely ambassadors for the French way of life and French way of thinking when they are coming back to their own countries. Paris is a place of socialization, so we can connect with others. And like a brain, every connection is a progress in terms of being smart. And thanks to a very strange thing, which are the cafe, we have, I don't remember how much, but I think it's more than 10,000 cafes opened in Paris. So beginning at 8 in the morning and finishing at 8 in the morning the next day. So at any time, you can just sit down and speak with people, exchange, discovering people, and so on. And the fact is that the renting, just like in Shanghai, London, or Berlin, is very high now. So people gathered in the street because the surface of the apartments are quite small. So they can't receive people inside. So they have to get out to meet people. They gather in the streets, and they are transforming the public space into meeting rooms and connection rooms. And as every culture coexists and is keen to welcome other cultures, you can make 10 meters on change of worlds. That's why I called Paris a city world. And to finish with that, you have to protect your brain. And how do you protect your brain? The first thing is that in France, and especially in Paris, you have large health and social coverage, but you have also a large part of shared resources. We do things that culture, knowledge, and so have to be shared to everybody inside our country and our city. And we have also to protect our bodies for the evolutions for the next years. So we want to change the city to a green city. We'll banish the cars in the next few months, preparing the Olympic Games, which will take place in next July 2024. And we're also renovating all the buildings of Paris so that Parisians will live in correct environments. For example, the all roofs will be green, so that means that we will plant trees and other flowers on the roofs. Is it a smart city? Yes, I just show you the photo of the Parisian networks, transportation networks. I mean, you can find a public transport at every place in Paris near to you, never more than 50 to 100 meters. So that means that just like a brain, if a route is broken, you can take another itinerary. So Paris is very, very well connected. You don't need cars. We all use the suburban transport or our bicycle, because we have taken that from you, and bicycles are now everywhere, and that's a very good way to move. The green transition, so we'll renovate all the buildings, but we'll also use this opportunity to build a green city. That means that we'll connect every places with fiber, which is quite already done, so that every Parisian has an access, and very good access, to the internet. So what can Paris bring in terms of constructing these new worlds, including the artificial intelligence and numeric approach? How can the Parisian experience contribute to promote and manage a controlled approach of the numeric machine? An approach which is respectful as a human being. More and more, we have the feeling that something is preparing itself in terms of battle between machines and human being. And we do think that both have to work together and not to fight together. And for that, how do we increase creativity of Parisians? I will take some time to speak to you about the impact of the COVID in a numeric city, because it was very strange. Paris is definitely a place where you want to connect and see people. And when the COVID came, just like in China, everybody was forced to stay at home. And the only way to communicate with other people was numeric interaction. But we discovered quite a lot of things during this COVID crisis. It accelerates a lot of thinking we had before. So first of it is that the old world is sinking. And we have to understand the consequences of that. For example, we were quite proud of all the offices we had to welcome all the workers, but they were empty during the COVID crisis, and they are quite still empty. So the biggest corporate place in Paris is a place called La Défense, and at the time being, more than 20% of La Défense is still empty, because people are not coming back to these offices which were not so human. They prefer to stay at home. But when you stay at home, you're alone, which is quite a problem, because your brain is quite reducing, it's sinking, it's shrinking. So how do we live with the numeric approach? And we have more and more questions with that. In a numeric world, how can we be happy, productive, and creative? How do we have real contacts with others? Is the COVID the first step of the machine's victory? How do we transform our own life, which is a me life, to a we life inside this new numeric world we are going into? Are we feeding monster with investing so much in terms of numeric approach? The human link is essential. It's essential that it is not overpowered by the machine, so that the human remains the boss. To be sure that the numeric machine is still at our service and that we are not at the service of the machine. In Paris, we have a lot of thinking about conceptual approach. We currently use this sentence: at the beginning was the world. This sentence is the first sentence of the Bible, so which is the Christian book. Christian is a religion. But what we have understood is that machine is driven by rules and algorithm, so that at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the world, there are values, because rules are based on philosophical, economical, and social values, but we are not always conscious of that. So if you control the values that you are putting in the machine, you control the world you are building. That's very important, because it indicates how Paris can help to defeat the numeric beast and go to a cooperation between numeric world and human world. In terms of values, the French heritage is based on a long history of thinking. For example, the siècle des Lumières, existentialism. You have certainly heard about the French Revolution in 1789, entrepreneurship. Paris liked to think and change the world. Our nation's values are freedom, equality, fraternity. Freedom, because without freedom, you can't be creative. And in this world we are going to, we have to be creative. Equality, because we do think that everybody has something to bring into the game, to help human being be better and be better than the machine, complementary to the machine. And fraternity, because if you have at any time to protect yourself, if you can't count on other people, you use a large part of your own energy to protect yourself. And this energy is not dedicated to the change, to the creativity. For example, I've created in La Sorbonne a master which was using the philosophy to examine and to try to understand how this world we are building could be buildable. So we were working with the leaders of very large corporates, and we try to understand with them what they were doing for money, which it's their role. They have to earn a lot of money for their shareholders. And how could it be compatible with their own posture, with their own position as a human being? How can we reconcile the objectives and aims of their firm with objectives and aims for human being? It was very interesting. I left that 2 years ago now, but it has made a very, very big change in terms of what is managing, what's leading, what's the problems we have to cope with, and how can we cope with it. And I will finish this part with a special dedication to the strikes, because I certainly think that you know that in Paris you have a lot of strikes. Is it a Parisian specialty? The fact is, Parisians like to be together, and they don't have so much time to be together at the same time. On a strike, on a demonstration, it's not just the strike on a demonstration. It's also an opportunity to meet, to gather, and to connect with people, to have some sausage somewhere, to drink some beer, and to take one day together. So never forget that strikes in France are quite joyful, and time to time they are just opportunities to be together. So it's a definitely Parisian specialty. But not only strikes, you have love also. Love is a very big Parisian specialty. If you are in love, and we have a lot of Chinese couples coming here for their marriage, because it's so romantic. I don't know why, I have to confess, but that's true. And that's, as everyone thinks that love is in Paris, they are coming for love, and so they are meeting quite a lot of new people and developing their own love ability. The last thing is that parties are a non-negotiable asset. So parties are everywhere in France and everywhere in Paris. On a Friday and Saturday night, you can't just walk on the street and not cross a party with a lot of people making some noise, having fun. And it's definitely a way to connect, to interact, and to be together. And also to welcome all the new people who are coming in, because in the party you can go when you are a stranger, and you will always find people to speak with and to interact with. And I will conclude with also this mix between the old Paris, the new Paris, the numeric, and the reality, the mix between luxury and the city. It makes it totally postmodern. It's some sort of a vision what the world could be in the next future. This mix is between handcraft and industry, monetary wealth and cultural capital. Everybody has its own place, and everything is, everybody is connected to others, either by numeric means, which are not so important, but by also physical contact, discussing, working, eating, thinking, painting, writing, hiking, riding a bicycle, and everything. This mix is based on culture, art, food, beauty, wines, monuments, and Parisians. So, see you soon. Thank you very much.